There's something about Keon Coleman that I can't quit. It's like a bad habit.
It is.
It's like, ooh, I love it, but I know it's so bad.
Yeah, it's like a cigarette at a night out at the casino.
It's like every time I log on to check our show and read our comments, my algorithm's like 5 of the sickest catches you ever see from Keon Coleman in 2023. And I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this.
Welcome to the opening bell of the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers coming to you guys for another position ranking episode of the podcast. And this one, this one's a doozy. Connor, we're making history on this episode because this is the first ranking we've ever done where we're giving you our top, not 10, not 15, not 20, 30. We are giving you our top 30 wide receivers for the 2024 NFL draft. And dude, I feel like we've talked so much about how great and how deep this wide receiver class is. We had to give the people what they wanted most, which was the deepest wide receiver episode we've ever done here on the show. To fit that, how you doing, my friend?
This one is for the freaks, my friend, the true freaky addicts out here. I'm doing great. This is one of the best episodes we do of the entire year. Our final wide receiver rankings, because traditionally in this era, wide receiver is not only one of the stronger groups year after year, but it's the group that you could almost guarantee there will be a player taken on day 3 that absolutely blows up. And that's going
to break the rookie record again.
Yeah, that's going to have a historic season that we haven't seen in like 100 years. Yeah, so you're guaranteed for that. Good luck figuring out who it is.
I am sure you have gotten this question when you have gone on shows over the last month and a half. People go like, hey, who's the next Puka Nacua? Right?
There is none.
Who's going to get drafted? And I'm like, and I always kind of want to say to people, I understand what you're asking.
Right.
Like, it's a fun question, but can you at least think about what you're asking me? Which day 3 receiver do I think is going to break the rookie receiving record? Like, if he was going to do that, they wouldn't be going day 3. So,
dude, the best part is with that record, I can't remember if it was the receptions or the yards, but one of them was, no, I had it wrong. But one of them was a record from 65 years ago. Like, it's not even like a record that it changes all the time in the modern passing era.
Right.
One of those 2 records, I remember we were going through it on Fantasy Football Happy Hour, was, the total receiving yards, 1960. Bill Groman.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's unbelievable. It's so funny that Stroud had the year he had, because Puka would have slept walk to offensive rookie of the year without that.
Truly.
Yes. Slept walk.
Yes. No, it's true. No, but it's so I don't know. All joking aside, there are a lot of really fun receivers that we'll talk about even on the back end of the top 30. Obviously, so we listen to you guys' feedback. We read the comments. We promise we do. We don't just respond, but we also kind of take them as feedback to always make the show better. When we did our top 20 edge rusher episode, we spent a lot of time on the guys that we hadn't really brought up on the show or hadn't brought up on mock drafts, so 20 through 11. And then, because we were crunched for time a little bit, we sort of glossed over some of the guys who were 10 to 5. And we noticed that that's a lot of the questions that you guys had, because you were like, wait, we hear about the guys in the top 5 all the time. What do you think about that second tier of guys, mid day 2 kind of thing? And that is fair. So in this receiver episode, we'll give you some thoughts on 30 through 20. We'll give you a little bit of thoughts on some of those guys, maybe some of the pros and cons that we like. But I hope the majority of our show is spent 20 through 5 and honestly 15 through 5, giving you our thoughts and our rankings on those guys who, okay, maybe we don't hear about in first round mock drafts too often, but we still think that they can be contributing players. So Connor, I think that that's a good way to do it as we go through these top 30s here.
I think so too as well. And I'm guilty of forgetting that not everybody is legitimately an addict, where they've been listening to us talk about some of these guys since summer, where when we sit down and record and Latu comes up, it's like, if you listen to this show every week, and we have a special appreciation for you, you've heard us talk about Latu the player, I mean, maybe 80 times by now. But there are a lot of people this time of year that tune into us to learn about the draft in the month of April. and we don't want to cheat those people either. And obviously with our not just time constraints, but how we did the Edge episode, we did miss a couple of breakdowns on those. So we'll do our best to at least give one-liners today on every single player. But we, like you said, Trev, the depth of the analysis will be heavily in the top 15.
So with that being said, 30 wide receivers is a lot to get to, my friend. Let's dig into it. I would love to hear, give me your 30 through 26, and I'll maybe give like a follow-up on it. We'll talk a little bit about those guys, but then we'll kind of move on pretty quickly before we get into that top 20. But 30 through 26, who you got?
So 30 for me is Ryan Flournoy from Southeast Missouri State, size, speed receiver that was at the Senior Bowl. Taj Washington, a Shrine guy, a smaller slot receiver and returner from USC. I want to make sure that I didn't miss anybody here. This gets real off the rails. 28, Jaquan Jackson from Tulane.
I didn't watch him.
Another Senior Bowl vertical guy.
Yeah, one guy I did not watch.
Yeah, we'll talk about him briefly. 27, Cornelius Johnson from Michigan, that classic Michigan perimeter receiver, big perimeter receiver on the outside. And then 26, Johnny Wilson from Florida State, who you and I have discussed since literally summer scouting.
Yes. Yeah. You're too low on Johnny Wilson. We'll get to that in a little bit. But okay, talk to me about Jackson just a little bit. Give me the overview because people won't hear my thoughts on him. He's somebody that I'm trying to get to as we're finishing out the draft guide, but I did not get to him yet.
Interesting player. So my quick hitter on him. He's 5'9" and 1/8, 188, speedster. He's the nephew of Ed Reed. And he, obviously played receiver instead of safety. Didn't follow his uncle in that road. Tulane used him.
Hold on. We got 2 Ed Reed family members in this draft. You know that, right?
Because who's the other one?
Trey Taylor, the safety from Air Force, is Ed Reed's cousin.
Wow. So interesting.
I did not know that we've got multiple connections to Ed Reed here in this draft.
I had no idea about that one. I still have to watch him in the safety group. That's crazy. So nephew of Ed Reed. Listen, Tulane used him all over the field. Runner, receiver, dynamic kick and punt returner. An ankle injury limited his production in 2023. I thought he got healthy in time to show off his speed during Senior Bowl practices. He lacks size and strength to play on the outside, but is a true vertical threat from the slot with a ton of upside on special teams.
Okay. All right. Flournoy. So, okay. You know what's interesting about him? I did watch him a little bit. He's not my top 30. When I watched him, I wondered if he was he was a good enough athlete for the competition level that he was playing against. But I wondered if it was like really decisive to where, okay, this guy is for sure going to fit in with the NFL. I was a little bit worried about that, but then he tested really well at the combine. So I guess I have to quell those a little bit. But for him, I just wondered if Flournoy was just going to kind of get caught in the shuffle, lost in the shuffle is probably a better way to say it when it came to the NFL, because I wasn't sure he was much of a difference maker there. But yeah, he did not make my top 30. He was just outside of it.
Right. And he's somebody that he's going to be 25 in October of his rookie season, it's always an uphill climb. But he was a big time tester. I thought the hands were really, really good. The way he can catch the ball away from his body. So I think when you have that kind of size and athleticism, teams like to put you on the back end of their roster or the practice squad to see, hey, can you become a gunner and maybe a guy that we can use his depth on the outside down the line? He'll have a shot.
Okay, so my 30 through 26, I've got Jalen Coker from Holy Cross at number 30, the extremely productive player, was a former 0-star recruit, and then led the FBS led Holy Cross all time in receiving yards and receiving touchdowns.
How could he not?
Super productive player for them, especially over the last 2 years. 29, I have Tavion Robinson from Kentucky. Is he in your top 30?
No, he is somebody that I did not watch throughout this process. I saw Coker was like right at 32 for me. I didn't get to Robinson yet.
Dude, Tavion Robinson is very polarizing because you watch a couple of snaps of this guy and you go, okay, you could play in the NFL. Like you're very clearly athletic enough. He's a slot receiver. He's a smaller guy. He's a slot receiver, but like he's really explosive. He looks like his frame is filled out really well. So he's got some strength to him, but he's so inconsistent. Like he just doesn't have a good feel for his own coverages. He drops the football. He is like over aggressive all the time. And so it's just, he's just so inconsistent of a player. I just really could not depend on him, even though I really like his athleticism. And I remember people in the preseason were super high on this dude going into the year. And I can see it if you're just looking at the athlete, but there's so much nuance of the position that he just does not have a good enough handle with. And when you're a redshirt senior and that's the case, it's tough for me to think that you're going to get way better at that at the NFL. So anyways, got him at 29. Taj Washington, I have at 28. Cornelius Johnson from Michigan, I have at 27. You highlighted those guys pretty well. 2 Shrine Bowl receivers, 2 guys that I liked watching in person. Washington was right there, I think, with Malik Washington at the Shrine Bowl is the top consistent separator day to day when it came to those Shrine Bowl practices. And then Cornelius Johnson, honestly, I was really impressed by him at the Shrine Bowl. And going back, watching his tape, all that good stuff, the bottom line kind of takeaway I have for his scouting report is Johnson seems like a more talented player than his production suggests.
I agree with that.
I think he'll be, if anything, a wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 at the NFL level. I don't think he's going to be necessarily more than that. But I think he's more talented than how little I felt like he was used at Michigan. And then 26 for me, this speaks to how good I think this wide receiver class is. I have Luke McCaffrey at 26. Do you have him in your top 30?
Yeah, I have him at 24.
Okay, all right. So you got him sort of close, but McCaffrey is somebody who I like, man.
Me too. A lot. He catches everything.
Dude, he catches everything. So he's Ed McCaffrey's son. He's Christian McCaffrey's brother. He's not as explosive as Christian is. He's not as big as his dad was. In fact, Luke played wide receiver his first 2 years of high school. Then he played quarterback his second 2 years of high school. Actually went to Nebraska out of high school as a quarterback. Quarterback in Nebraska for 3 years. Transfers over to Rice. Ends up moving to wide receiver. Played wide receiver the last 2 years for Rice. And he's still, you could just tell that he's grown up around the game of football. Very nuanced, very soft hands, very reliable hands. I just don't think he's ever going to be like an elite vertical type of player for you. Yeah. Even though he's not the biggest dude in the world, I feel like his style is that of like a big slot or a power slot type of receiver. So I do really like Luke McCaffrey, who I think, again, good route runner, high football IQ dude, really reliable hands. But I still, because of how good this wide receiver class is, I got him at wide receiver 26.
Yeah, I think we saw him very similar. I think that, power slot traits, I think he is still learning how to get off the line of scrimmage, which is my number one thing. It just feels like if you get hands on him, he's still learning how to kind of vary that release package. But
and it's tough too, because he's not going to threaten you vertically, right?
No.
If there's not a big fear for a vertical threat, it's a lot easier to be more aggressive and confident and press, because even if you get beat, like if you punch and they block your hand away or whatever, you know that you could just kind of recover on them and you can catch up. So I think that goes into it too.
Do you want to talk about Johnny Wilson now or when you get to him?
Where do I have Wilson? I think I have him top 20. So
okay,
I got Johnny Wilson top 20. So we'll wait on him.
Okay.
Give me 20. Give me 25 through 21.
25, Jacob Cowing. A player that we've been on the radar for a while, slot receiver out of Arizona. 24, like I said, Luke McCaffrey out of Rice. 23 was Jalen McMillan out of Washington. 22, Anais Smith from Texas A&M, or as Brett said on the show, didn't he say if EJ takes him at 32, he'll deck him? Unbelievable. 21, Brendan Rice, big perimeter target from USC. And of course, son of Jerry.
Okay. I have a lot of the same names. So I have at 25, I have Isaiah Williams from Illinois. Is he your top 30?
He's not in my top 30. I'd actually really like to hear you talk about him because he was a conflicting watch for me.
Is it because of just like the size?
Yeah. So like all the little dudes in my top 30, I was like, man, they are really, really tough to stop. He plays such a weird style. It was tough to leave him out. He was the one where him and Coker, I was like, oh man, I really would like to talk about them today, but I just don't have them in my top 30.
So Isaiah Williams, a productive wide receiver from Illinois. He is barely above 5'9" and 182 pounds. And he has a 30 and an 1/8 inch arms. So that is 8th percentile in height, 11th percentile in weight, 9th percentile in arm length.
But there's so many guys like that in this class.
I know, dude. And you know what the problem is, Connor? They all produce.
They all were really, really good college football players.
Really freaking productive. And you sit here and you go, yeah, but Tank Dell.
Yeah.
And it's just like, yeah, that's
I know.
Conversation 8 times this draft class.
And then he got broken in half at some point of the season.
Right, which is not
that's
great.
Part of the problem.
And I have Cowing in my next group of players.
Right, who's really small.
To me, like, Cowing is that. Like, I wrestled with the Tank Dell Jacob Cowing thing because I watched Cowing and I just go, dude, you're too small. And then I think about Tank Dell, and I don't think that Cowing is the caliber of receiver that Dell is. But in a similar light, it's hard for me to just discount guys that get open that much.
He's always open.
So we'll have the Cowing discussion in a second. But Isaiah Williams, it is a transition because he is pretty similar. You know, like, here's the strengths for him. Releases are tempoed and precise, knows how to very quickly stop, start, and create that separation even after defenders can get hands on him, which doesn't always happen with smaller receivers, which is why I like him enough to have him in my top 25. Great body control for acrobatic catches in air with in-air adjustments, very quick acceleration, and you see that in the 82nd percentile vertical jump. He had a 62 62nd percentile, broad jump. And then the dude's lightning quick, 83rd percentile 3-cone drill. And I think you see that in all of his routes that he's setting up. So to me, it's kind of the classic, this is just a smaller receiver, but he just gets open. 95th percentile in separation percentage overall, 76th percentile in separation versus single coverage. Obviously, he's like going to struggle with contested catches and with blocking and with getting off the line of scrimmage if guys can really get hands on him. But there's just so many things that he does really well. He is one of the best route runners in the class because of his precision. And again, because of how I think he tempos his releases. You know, he's not just this, okay, the ball was hiked, I got to get upfield. And some guys are, and that's not necessarily the worst thing in the world. But I noticed that Isaiah Williams will sometimes give you a speed release and dip the shoulder and get right by you. But other times he'll do that thing where the ball will be hiked and he'll like step like 2 or 3 steps, and the corner, you could tell, it's just like, all right, buddy, where you going? Like, let's see. And he's just like makes him panic a little bit. And then boom, he shimmies the shoulders and the feet, chop a little bit, and he kind of gets by him, and he gets a little bit of a free release that he gets to create that way. So, man, I seem to like Isaiah Williams a little bit more than other people do in this class. So yeah, I got him at 25.
Did the 40 worry you at all?
No, I mean, I'm very shocked that he ran.
It didn't match the
that
film.
Slow.
Right.
But I do have in here, hold on. I do have in here that, like, he's not the best vertical player. Like, he's not going to absolutely burn you down the sideline. So he can create that separation, especially when he wins with quickness off the line of scrimmage. But I didn't expect for him to be like a 4.3 guy. 4.63 is much slower than I thought it was going to be for Isaiah Williams, but that's also not really his game. So.
Yeah, it's tricky. I struggle with a guy that is going to be one of the smallest players at his position in the league, and then also somehow timed as one of the slowest. But you're right; it doesn't equate to the film. The 3-cone is really good. He has great agility. It's definitely a tricky one. He would be an outlier if he hits, and that's why we're talking about him 20 through 30, not in the top 15.
So I have him at 25. I have Anaya Smith at 24. So thankfully, EJ didn't take him in the first round of the mock draft that we did. I have Brandon Rice at 23.
Oh, we were real close on this group.
We were. Here's where we get a little bit different. I have Jamari Thrash at 22.
Okay, I like him a little better than you.
I have Jacob Cowing at 21, just because I can't quit the young man.
No.
Dude, 90th percentile separation overall, 86th percentile separation versus single coverage.
Yeah, he's a nightmare to deal with if you're stuck with him in the slot with a 2-way go.
You know what's funny about Jacob Cowing too? I was watching a couple of plays of him, earlier this morning as I was kind of getting ready for this show, and I'm watching a couple of plays, and he's cooking people with his routes. He's doing double moves, and these guys got no prayer. And then he was running like a corner route to the front pylon, and the quarterback sees it late. The safety's coming down on him. The corner was able to drop a little bit, and the safety still tried to squeeze it in there. And it's like you see exactly what works with Jacob Cowing one play and exactly what doesn't the other. Because the play before, he had a beautiful move where he just absolutely shook somebody, created that separation, got a first down catch. This one, the quarterback was late, so he didn't hit that space, and it was instead a jump ball to Cowing, and he didn't have a prayer to come down with this football. So it's just kind of what you see is what you get there. So yeah, that's my 25 through 21.
Okay, you want to talk about anyone else? Or you want to keep moving? Where'd you have McMillan?
I have McMillan a little bit higher. I have McMillan 17.
Okay, so my view on Thrash is your McMillan.
Okay,
I have Thrash at 17.
All right, so we could talk about both of those guys right here before we do the next five. So talk to me about McMillan. You've got him a little bit lower. You got him at 23.
Yeah, McMillan's a solid player. Obviously, we talked a lot about him over summer scouting as well and had bigger expectations for him. He's just the kind of guy to me that he doesn't separate himself from the pack with size or athleticism. He's just middle of the pack in both. The play strength really concerns me.
Mm-hmm.
Like when things get physical, he just does not have balance. It feels like a gust of wind is going to kind of move him over. So if you're playing in an offense that can, kind of create space for him, I don't worry about McMillan getting the job done as a slot receiver in that kind of offense. But
yeah,
I saw him very underwhelming from a physicality standpoint. And then he's just a fine athlete. And that's kind of when you get lost in the shuffle of being a jag rather than a difference maker.
Yeah, I think I understand the concerns that you have with McMillan that you're bringing up there. Like he's definitely not the densest wide receiver, right? If you get good hands on him, if you're bumping him in the contact window, you can really kind of get him off of his route. He's not going to break a ton of tackles for you. So I understand that, but I think what puts him higher for me is I think he's really smart. And for exactly what he's going to be in the NFL, like to your point, if somebody wants this guy to be constantly, on the line of scrimmage or running, I'll say like in a vertical offense, if you want Jalen McMillan in a vertical offense, he's probably going to disappoint you
100%.
Because you're going to put him in like bump and run situations. You're going to put him in press situations. And he doesn't have a ton of great long speed anyways. So in that instance, yes, it's going to be tough for him to produce. But if you put him in on an offense where, and I think Washington did a really good job of this, you can get him in manufactured stuff, short crossers, shallow crossers, curls, hooks, like in between zone coverages. Like he's really smart at sitting down exactly where he needs to, tempoing his routes to timing things out really well. And he does have good yards after catch, despite not being the strongest guy in the world, because normally you're kind of sacrificing one or the other. You're either a high average depth of target player and a low yards after catch player, or you're a low average depth of target player and a high yards after catch player, right? There's not often where you get guys who are both. Those are the players that are special that can really produce for you. Jalen McMillan was 53rd percentile in average depth of target and 58th percentile in yards after catch per reception. So to me, that's a good indication of versatile usage and just him getting open with his IQ, being in these advantageous situations. It also doesn't get lost on me that in an offense that also contained Romo Dunze and Jalen Polk, he had a 69th percentile yards per route run. So they wanted to get this guy the ball.
Yeah.
And I have to believe it's because he is a really smart wide receiver. So I definitely see some of the physical limitations. They definitely exist with him. I just felt like that route running IQ is still going to allow him to produce at the NFL level.
And by the way, a lot of the arguments that I made against McMillan, you could sit here and throw right back at me with Jamari Thrash. That's the funny thing about this. Like Thrash in the same mold, does not separate himself from the pack with size or testing times. I thought he played really, really fast, though, Thrash. And I mean, we even saw him at the Senior Bowl be a guy that can win over the top against good competition. He's just somebody that kept impressing me as the months went on throughout the season into the All-Star process.
Yeah, Thrash, man, when I read kind of my overall view of Thrash, it feels like a crime for him to be wide receiver 22 in this class. But again, I just like so many of these players. Right. Really good separation scores. Again, another player who very high yards per route run, high average step to target, high yards after catch per reception. Now, a lot of that kind of comes vertically because to me, McMillan was an underneath receiver. Thrash was more of a vertical receiver. And you and I noted this when we talked about the Senior Bowl show. It's not that Thrash naturally creates a ton of separation, but he creates a little bit of it kind of through those subtleties of little bit of a push off, a little bit of timing exactly when he breaks to look over the shoulder. And that allowed him to be a really nice vertical receiver throughout all 3 days, I thought, of the Senior Bowl. So sort of similar players, but I feel as though McMillan's is more replicable than Thrash is without that elite athleticism because Thrash had won a lot vertically. So that's just kind of how I came to that conclusion.
One quick note on Brendan Rice, because he was in this category for both of us. Mm-hmm. There are high moments of Brendan Rice, especially what he did to Kyrie Jackson at the Senior Bowl. There are moments with him that you go, wow, this guy looks like a number one wide receiver. He's 6'2", he's over 200 pounds, he's got 33-inch arms, he ran a 4.5, he could jump. I just thought the play speed is totally unpredictable on the field.
That's the word, man.
It's I have no idea what kind of play speed I'm getting on any given rep.
Dude, I watched his tape before the Senior Bowl, and I said, okay, good acceleration, pretty good route runner, pretty consistent separation.
Real red zone threat.
I was like, I guess he's kind of just like a speed guy, maybe he'll just be like a little bit of a speed guy. And then he shows to the Senior Bowl, and I kind of felt like he couldn't separate for shit. But then all of a sudden, he's just a contested catch monster.
Yeah, so very odd player.
Okay, and you just saying the unpredictable athleticism, because sometimes you see it, and then sometimes you just do not. And you can look at that one of two ways, right? You can look at it as, oh, I've seen both, so I know he's capable of both. Let me make him a top 15 receiver in this class. Or it sounds like both of us are on the opposite side of the coin where it's like, man, I don't know what I'm getting still with you in the NFL. And maybe it's special, but maybe it's completely replaceable. I'm not really sure.
20-16?
Yes, let's do it.
Okay, 20-16, Anthony Gould from Oregon State. Somebody that in 2022 was a first-team all-returner. Great punt returner. 19, Malik Washington from Virginia. Kind of maybe the poster boy in this draft of the, hey, he's really small, but holy shit, does he make plays all the time.
Yeah.
18, Jermaine Burton from Alabama. 17, I already gave away, Jamari Thrash. 16, the most underappreciated wide receiver in this draft, Javon Baker from UCF.
Oh, man. I thought you were going to throw somebody out that I didn't have in my top 30.
No. But Baker doesn't get enough love.
I thought we were Mo Kamara all over again.
No, I wouldn't. I wasn't going to do that.
You wouldn't do that to me.
No,
again.
Not with that. Or would I? Oh man.
Yeah, you're gonna have somebody in the top 10 that I don't have in my top 30, and it's just gonna be absolutely nuclear.
And you're gonna be like, all right, show's over.
We can have a couple of those conversations because I have a lot of those guys again, kind of in that same bucket. Malik Washington for me is 20, so right there with you, about the same. Johnny Wilson from Florida State is 19. I won't quit him, man. I won't do it. I can't do it. A top 20 wide receiver in this class. I have Javon Baker at 18. I have Jalen McMillan at 17. This one breaks my heart to tell you who is 16 because in the first wide receiver episode that we did in December, I made a case for him to be a top 5 wide receiver in this class.
Boy, did you jump off the ship with your hands tied behind your back and your legs with ankle weights.
This is
I can't wait to hear who this is.
This is Tez Walker.
Yeah,
this
context.
is Tez Walker, man.
He's 15 for me.
It breaks my heart because I watched the Kent State tape and I was like, we've got something here, folks. I thought he was physical. I thought he was athletic. I thought he knew how to get vertical, how to separate. Even though it wasn't super nuanced yet, I thought everything that you would want as an athlete was there. I saw some tough catches, some contested catches, and I get that this past year wasn't exactly an ideal situation of how he was even getting on the field, but I felt like he was way more inconsistent at UNC, and that's with Drake May as his quarterback. And then the Senior Bowl was tough, man. He just the concentration drops.
It was bad.
It was bad. And now I don't know what to believe because the Kent State tape now we're well over a year removed from that. And instead we have 2 different instances of you putting on the helmet and pads for UNC and at the Senior Bowl, and I did not love what I was seeing. And so if we get more of the difference maker that I felt like I was watching at Kent State, I'll come back and look at this 15, 16 ranking for me and be like, yeah, you coward. But it's hard for me in a really good wide receiver class to bet on his inconsistencies, especially when it comes to catching the football, because that is job number 1 of a wide receiver.
I didn't have the heart to leave him out of the top 15, but I absolutely made him number 15. And, you know, for me, I don't even dislike the UNC tape. I just think there are limitations. I thought that you see him make adjustments. He understands the short route game. He understands coverages. I mean, I've said this on the last episode. We had him registered with 5 drops. The 5 drops are just like the best receivers in football would struggle to make the catches that were registered for drops.
Mm-hmm.
But the stop and start in routes is clunky and there's no creativity with the ball in his hands. And then to get down to Mobile, where his strides cover so much turf that he can run away from good corners. But to not finish plays over and over again, everybody can have a bad week, but it was really disappointing. Yeah. I mean, there was some throws from Penix to him where I was like, dude, like that's what an NFL ball is going to look like outside the numbers. Catch it, right? You got to catch it, and he didn't.
Yeah, no, and it's. I think this is obviously a very harsh drop for me. You weren't as high on him earlier on, so it's not as far of a drop even for you. But now we're in the same category with him because, like you said, love the long speed, and he can be a vertical receiver at the NFL level. But you know, there's times when I've watched him and thought about him at the Senior Bowl, and I'm like, damn, is this just Jalen Hyatt, right? And like I thought Jalen Hyatt was extremely limited coming in from last year's class. I was like, this guy's just a speed player, and a lot of the other like strength parts of the game and getting off press and running precise routes, like there really wasn't that. It was just vertical routes. And that's kind of how I feel like with Tez Walker right now. I still think I like Tez more than I liked Hyatt, but we're in the similar conversations of basically if this guy's going to have value at the NFL level, it's going to be how I saw Hyatt having value at the NFL level, and it's just as a vertical guy, and I wish it was more because I felt like it could have been more watching the Kent State tape. Let's talk about Javon Baker.
Yeah, let's talk about Javon Baker.
What do you like about him?
Let me pull up my notes on good old Javon Baker here. I wrote, number 1, I gave him a 3rd-round grade, and he's my 16th wide receiver. So if you're wondering how talented this class is.
Yeah, I also have a 3rd-round grade on him. Yep.
Consistent deep threat, exploded in 2023 with over 1,100 receiving yards, 7 touchdowns, 30 catches of 15-plus yards. Baker simply knows how to win down the field with sharp routes, body control, and tracking skills. In contested situations, Baker positions himself well and is a big leaper to high point the ball. His experience playing both inside and outside will bring versatility to an NFL offense. There are too many instances on tape of him dropping a layup or stabbing at throws he works back to. His playmaking ability down the field gives us a real shot, though, to be a high upside number 3 receiver at the next level. Yeah,
I mean, I pretty much see him similarly. I really do. Like, I have his comp as Josh Palmer. You know,
I like that. That's nice.
That's the way that I feel like he plays. I mean, I just feel like he's good at like everything, you know, like he's not terrible at anything. I don't think I don't know if I would say he's elite, but like the competitiveness, like the long speed. I like the agility. I like the crispness in the routes. He's competitive at the catch point. Like there's so many just things to like. I'm a little worried about him not having that trump card, right? That's why I
Yes.
think we see him similarly as this is somebody who I think could be a good wide receiver 3 at the next level. Don't know if that's ever going to be a wide receiver 2 because of the lack of kind of trump cards for him. But I just think this is a really solid future difference making wide receiver. So that's how I saw him too. And I had him at 18.
I compared him to Romeo Dobbs.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah. So I'll try to get better at saying my comparisons.
Yeah, if you
in
got
the
them. I mean,
show.
I don't have all my comparisons there. Speaking of comparisons, less determined Plexico Burress is what I'm calling him. Johnny Wilson. I got him at 19.
What? Did you say less determined?
Yeah, less determined.
That's really good.
I gotta throw in just like the different ways to be more creative, like
What
shades
about
of
Plax on Mass Gainer? I mean,
It's-
he's got to
'cause-
outweigh Plax. No,
dude. Plexico Burress was huge.
he was 6'6". Yeah, you're right. Wow, 6'6",
Plaxico-
231 was his combine measurement.
And that's pretty similar to
Why did I feel like he was so skinny by the time he got to the Jets? Maybe it was
mean,
was post gunshot Plax like a little thinner.
I couldn't tell you, man.
You'd think what Plax you forget is that he was 6'6".
Yes.
Like, I mean, one of the freakier. It felt like he had the longest arms I'd ever seen on a wide receiver in person. 33. Not 33. I'll find his arm length.
Wow, Johnny Wilson measured in at 231. I didn't realize that. It's the same exact weight. It's the same exact height. It's the same exact weight. Look, I don't know if you were about to say this. If you were, I apologize because you're still my friend and I respect you.
Plax had almost 34-inch arms.
Well, Wilson's are longer.
I believe it. Johnny Wilson looks a lot bigger, just like visually.
Johnny Wilson's arms are 35 and 3/8.
God. He should play pass rush. He should be a pass rusher. All right, go off. Sorry.
Here's the thing. Anybody that's saying that Johnny Wilson should be a tight end is not watching the film.
Right.
Watch the film, okay? Like there are things to not like about Johnny Wilson. I'm not trying to say he's a perfect prospect. I have him 19th. But those issues are not like movement issues. His releases are varied. I mean, he could do all sorts of stuff off the line of scrimmage. I'm super impressed with how fast he gets off the line of scrimmage, how fast his footwork is off the line of scrimmage, how he gets off of press, how he can speed release, how he can swim move these guys, how he can use his hands to swipe them away and get up the field. Yeah, okay, vertically, sure. I mean, he's not as fast as some of these other dudes, but his stride length is giant. So at least that helps him when he's getting vertical up the field. He's also way more fluid in his routes than he gets credit for, it seems, when people are just like, move him to tight end. You're only saying move him to tight end because of his size. Like, he's not even, I mean, he is an imposing blocker when it comes to much smaller cornerbacks, but it's not like he's this mean cuss of a blocker of, we got to put this guy in line. You put Johnny Wilson in line and you're taking away the best parts of what he is as a receiver. To me, the frustrating parts about Wilson are mainly just his hands. Like, yes, I wish he was
catcher.
Way more consistent. And here's the thing. There are too many times when he's a body catcher, but I've also seen him fully extend for catches.
Right.
And it's beautiful because nobody else had 35 and 3/8-inch arms. So genuinely, he's got great releases. He's got good work off of press in the line of scrimmage. His first step is impressive. His flexibility and his agility is way better than it should be for 6'6", 231 pounds. It's just, he has to be that bonus athlete, but also be that big, strong, reliable, big-bodied player that he is in the measurables. And if you get that, genuinely, I think he could be a wide receiver 2 at the NFL level. But until he gets more consistent, and again, going back to the Tez Walker thing, catching the football is priority number 1 for a wide receiver. You got to be able to do that. I need him to get stronger. I need him to get more determined. And if he can do that, like I said, I'm sitting here saying that his ceiling's a wide receiver 2 in the league.
All right. Fight the fight for Johnny Wilson. I like it.
I will.
You did. That was a good rant. I'm going to actually literally watch him again after this. Whenever you have somebody in a totally different tier than me. I usually go back and watch them within 48 hours of a
Same.
season.
Same.
Because I feel like I can't remember who. There was somebody that I moved like one spot difference on the position rankings where I was like, yeah, I need to go back to that one.
There we go.
All right, want to do 15 to 11?
Yes. 15 through 11. Let's do it.
Devontae Walker, I said already at 15.
Mhm.
14, this is what's called, this guy being at 14 is a sin of just a great wide receiver class. Malachi Corley at 14.
Okay.
It's just one of those where like, why is he at 14? He's such a good player.
Yep. We'll talk about Malachi Corley first because I got a kind of like a point of view I have to bring up about Corley. But
okay. 13, Xavier Legette.
Okay.
12, Roman Wilson. 11, drum roll,
Ricky.
Xavier Worthy.
Oh!
He's good. He's number 11, though.
Okay. All right.
He's fast. Did you know that?
I did know that he's fast. I was going to wonder if either of us were going to have Keon Coleman outside of the top 10.
He's 10.
Okay, I have.
It was close with him and Worthy, but there's something about Keon Coleman that I can't quit. It's like
I know.
It's like a bad habit. It's like, ooh, I love it, but I know it's so bad.
Yeah, it's like a cigarette at a night out at the casino.
It's like every time I log on to check our show and read our comments, my algorithm's like 5 of the sickest catches you ever see from Keon Coleman in 2023, and I'm like, yeah, I'll watch this.
I mean, you have to. It's just, I mean, that's just good content right there.
Yes.
Okay, we're gonna have some conversations here.
Okay.
15 for me is Jermaine Burton.
And I had him at 18, and it's not because of talent,
dude. So anybody who I mean, shoot, we're not updating the board until next week, so you can go on pff.com and you can check out the big board right now. I've got Jermaine Burton at like 52 overall.
Right.
Like, I love the dude's tape. He's genuinely, to me, a wide receiver 2 at the NFL level. I gave him a second round grade based off of film, but I have just heard way too many inconsistent off the field. He might not be on some teams' boards, and it's too much smoke now for me to believe that there wouldn't be fire there. So I have to bring him down in my rankings. I had him either 9 or 10 kind of before all of that stuff kind of started to come out from him. And if this dude stays motivated and wants to be as good as he possibly can be at the NFL level, he will be. And I think that he will be a contributing NFL player because he is that talented to do so. But there's too much smoke for there to not be fire. Xavier Worthy is 14 for me. Did you think he was going to be higher?
I didn't know. I never truly know with you. I usually have a good read. Like I knew you never bought into like, oh wow, he broke the record. He's top 5. I knew he wasn't going to be in your top 5.
Yeah.
I thought he would be fringy. I thought like 10.
He's just not my cup of tea.
I mean, I listen, I get it.
He is skinny. He struggles through the strength portions of the game.
And play strength.
And that's at the college level, right? The elite speed is there, and I think he's more than just a straight line athlete. Like, again, I take Xavier Worthy over Jalen Hyatt from last year, but it's just struggles to get off of press coverage, gets locked up against good press corners, doesn't use his hands to fight off defenders because he doesn't have the strength to do it. Consistent strength at the catch point is a major issue. You're not going to be able to get anything from this guy blocking. It's basically, at this point, Xavier Worthy is, can we scheme up a shot play for you deep down the field, or can we give you a screen that maybe you take to the house? That's way too limited in my opinion.
Can you get drafted by Mike McDaniel?
That's way too limited in my opinion in this wide receiver class, even for as fast as he is, for me to put him over some of these other really talented wide receivers that I think have more all-around game and that have the strength and the size to be able to play at the NFL level. So I have Worthy at 14. I have Malachi Corley at 13, so pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I have Xavier Legette at 12, and then I got your boy Jalen Polk at number 11.
Okay.
So I didn't want to keep you from talking about Worthy or Burton or any of those other guys. So did you have anything you wanted to hit on them before
Well,
we got into either of
we're
the other
eye to
two?
eye on the Burton situation. The tape tells a different story, I think, from the unpredictable nature of where he'll go and how he's viewed, and obviously like coachability kind of things. We should probably talk about Leggett. You had him in this group, right?
12.
12. I had him 13.
Okay.
We should probably talk about Leggett because I think people see Leggett and back to Worthy real quick. Like what you're saying, like he almost has to be Deshaun Jackson, but I thought at Deshaun Jackson's weight, Jackson had this weird like dog in him where he did play really tough. And you can't just look at a guy that's really fast and really skinny and go, well, he could be Deshaun Jackson.
Yep.
Deshaun Jackson was a different breed.
Preach, brother.
Like he was a different dude. How quickly people forget. So I'm just not comfortable saying Worthy can be Deshaun Jackson. I hope so. I think he's a fine weapon in the NFL, but the dudes ahead of him, a lot of them have the whole package. So Leggett's a weird balance, right? Because he's a really late breakout. He was very good this year. He can go up and get the football. He's got an excellent frame. He's an acrobatic player with like explosive leaping. He's very tough to tackle when you scheme him up because of the frame he has, and he can build up his speed.
Yeah.
He's just not agile at all, where if you're like, hey, Xavier Leggett, go be our X receiver and constantly separate and be this superhuman player all the time. So he's a good player. I think he's a possession number 2 that you could do some fun, creative manufactured touches to as well. But combined with the late breakout, it was hard for him to crack the top 10 receivers in a great class for me.
I like Xavier Leggett a lot. Obviously, with him being 12 in a really good wide receiver class. I mean, what did I give him? A late second, early third round grade, because he's got just such a great size speed combination that not other players, even in the NFL, have, man. I think that he is going to be able to win with both of those things at the next level. The issues with him are, and I mean, you're correct, his best plays, and I think South Carolina did this on purpose, partly because this is Leggett's talent, but also out of necessity. Most of his production comes from crossers, either drag routes, either dig routes, either deep crossers over the middle, or it's just him going in motion and basically running almost like a wheel just straight up the sideline, or him just running a vertical route and just trying to get open and you're throwing it deep to him at the sideline. He is a momentum route runner, and when you ask him to really change direction, you're not getting the most out of his talents. So there are a lot of unique physical things about him that would make it tough for me to say, yeah, don't draft this guy. I wouldn't be interested in him in the third round.
No,
I'd absolutely
also great special teamer.
Yes,
great special teamer.
Ton of experience there as well. I just don't know if there's more for him. I kind of think this is what we're going to get with Xavier Leggett. And that's not a bad thing. I don't think that, again, I'm saying I would take this because I think even what he is right now in his current state, that plays at the NFL level. I just think it probably plays more of a wide receiver 3 than it's going to like a 2, or some people even like him as much as a potential wide receiver 1. I don't really know if he's going to develop much more nuance as a route runner than what we kind of have right now. And I hate saying that like guys can't be better, but just his physical profile overall, I don't know if there's a lot left in the tank for him to be more flexible and have more stop on a dime and, get more wiggle in his routes and things like that. I think it's kind of just what you see is what you get, which is fine. But that's why I end up having him just outside of my top 10 in a really talented wide receiver class.
And that's the key. I mean, he's my 61st overall player on the board. So he's not even in the top 10 wide receivers, but he's, qualifying as a player that should easily go in the first 2 rounds. So it's key to remember.
Malachi Corley. So I'm going to be honest with you. I have Malachi Corley like wide receiver 21 before this week. Like I was of the camp of he's not. This is extremely harsh, but it's like he's not a real receiver yet, right?
No, it's kind of weird to say it.
There's just not a lot of like crispness or precision in his footwork, in his routes, in his tempo, things like that. He is just very clearly a throw me the damn football
and get out of my way.
I will make it happen for you after that. And I watched him at the Senior Bowl, and I've talked about this before on the show. They were going through the wide receiver drills and, like running around the cones and things like that. And he had to stop and like redo the drill like a couple of times because he didn't have his footwork right? Like he was trying to plant with his right. And at that point, like you were needing to plant with your left and turn. And so you could just tell, like even the footwork is still something that he's working on as a former. Was he the one who came in as a corner and then as a running back? I feel like he was.
I think you're right.
Yes, he was a 2-star cornerback recruit, came in as a corner, switched positions, played running back for Western Kentucky before now moving to wide receiver full time.
Which kind of makes sense.
That obviously gives great context to it. And the more I thought about it, especially earlier this week, the more I kind of went back and watched Corley. And before I was sort of brushing off of those incredible yards after catch plays because I said to myself, it's not going to happen as much in the NFL level. And I need him to win as more as a traditional wide receiver. Here's the thing. I don't think I do. I genuinely don't think I do. And me and you see him pretty similarly when it comes to the rankings, because at this point I go almost like Leggett. If you don't get any better as a route runner, I'm still getting you on the field in the NFL because of what you do after the catch. And that was sort of the realization that I had is like, you got to stop being so hard on the fact that he can't run routes better than some of these guys that are kind of around him in the rankings. Because I'll tell you, there's basically nobody in this class that runs harder after the catch with better balance, better broken tackle ability, better force missed tackles, better acceleration, all of that than Malachi Corley. And I wasn't weighing that enough to where I am now, where I've got to have him top 15 in this class.
Yeah, you just have to. I mean, you look at the way the game has gone, the spacing created in the NFL field. This dude is going to go somewhere where they're going to know. I mean, think about it like this, and I know he's a very, very different player, but how Todd Monken tried so hard to get Zay Flowers involved last year.
Sure.
The right offensive coordinator is going to look at Malachi Corley and think the same way, where I don't need his average depth of target to be insane. I just need to find the quickest pathway to get him the football and see what happens.
Yep.
So he'd also be a really fun player for the new kick return rule.
Oh, dude.
Yeah. It's perfect for him.
He would be awesome at that.
He'd be a nightmare to deal with.
Truly would be. All right, we're going to get into our top 10 in a second. But to tell everybody out there, if you got a family, you got to get them term life insurance to protect them. It is as simple as that. It's one of the smartest financial decisions that you can make. And this time of year, it's the perfect time to get it done so you guys can focus on whatever else the year has in store for you and a great summer that's coming up. Fabric was designed by parents for parents to help you get high quality, surprisingly affordable term life insurance policies in less than 10 minutes. They got flexible policies that will fit your family's budget with quality policies like $1 million in coverage for less than $1 a day. You can get your personalized quote in just minutes and apply whenever it is convenient for you, all online into your schedule. You can go for start to cover in less than 10 minutes with no health exam required. Join the thousands of parents who trust Fabric to protect their family. Apply today in just minutes. Meet fabric.com/stock exchange, MEET fabric.com/stock exchange. The policies are issued by Western Southern Life Assurance Company, not available in certain states. Prices subject to underwriting and health questions. While I'm here doing some housekeeping, if you guys don't have a PFF subscription right now, now would be a great time to get one. 30 MDS gets you 30% off. You can get the draft guide. You can get the fully unlocked mock draft simulator. Basically everything that you would want from PFF, and you can get it for 30% off using the promo code 30MDS. I have Jalen Polk at number 11. I know you're going to have him in your top 10, so we can talk about him in a second. Connor, who you got 10 through... Do we want to do 4? Just because that's like where the debate is, right?
And
or do we want to do? Oh no! We got to do.
Oh, I know what you're saying. Go,
no.
Yeah. 10 to 4. You're right.
Or do we leave it 10 through 6, and then there's this suspense of 2 guys left? Who's wide receiver?
Let's do that.
Okay. All right. 10 through 6. 10 through 6.
Good producing.
We got there. We got there. We
really
got there
good
eventually.
Really good producing. 10, Keon Coleman. Just can't quit the fella. 9, Adonai Mitchell. Which I was painted as a villain in the last show.
You are.
I don't dislike Adonai Mitchell. I just don't think he's Terrell Owens.
Dude, you're the Joker.
All right, fine. I'll own the role.
You're Thanos right now.
Oh, great. They called me a madman. And we'll get there, by the way. All right. 8, I'm all screwed up. Lad McConkey. It hurts that Lad McConkey 8th because I will put my savings account on Lad McConkey being a good NFL player.
I know. And it's so funny because you are, and this is not a bad thing, you are Mr. Draft Marvin Harrison Jr. just like wherever, because he's gonna be
don't
good.
Be stupid,
right?
Oh man, it reminds me when you'll love this, when the Jets were on the clock in 2020, and I was like, oh, it's Tristan Wirfs. Like you can't miss with Tristan Wirfs, and you need to rebuild the whole line. Anyway,
thank you for your service.
Thank you. Good for the Bucks. 7, Ricky Pearsall.
Ooh, let's go, baby.
Is that high or low? You haven't said his name yet.
No. Like I've got him top 10, but
okay,
you got him higher than me. I'm proud of you.
Well, I think the difference is that I have Pearsall over McConkey. That's definitely not consensus, and it's weird to go, oh, I have Pearsall over McConkey. Let me pull up my board and see. I have
like 2 spots apart.
No, Pearsall 37th, McConkey 38th.
God, that's funny.
I mean, just pathetic fence sitting.
You absolute coward.
Pathetic fence sitting. Hiding under my own sheets.
And then, okay, so he was 7. Pearsall 7?
Pearsall is 7.
And then who's 6?
Well, we're going to leave 6. Because we
do you want to leave 6?
Yeah, we're gonna yeah. That's what you drew up. It was a good plan.
I don't
stick with it.
Sure. Brother, I don't know what day it is. Okay. So just for a reminder, Jalen Polk is 11, but we're still not talking about Jalen Polk yet.
We are not. He's wide receiver number 2.
Because you haven't said his name.
I have not.
10, I have Slick Rick himself, Ricky Pearsall.
Yeah.
9, I have Roman Wilson. Where was Roman for you?
He was 12.
Okay. All right.
He fits a little bit of the, not as much, but he fits the McConkey. Like he's going to be a good player.
That's why I got him here.
Yeah.
And that's why I got a little bit of a buffer because I got Keon Coleman at 8. And then I got Lad McConkey at 7. So it's kind of like similar profiles, but there's no doubt about it. I do like Lad McConkey better, although him and Roman Wilson are close. Like I think that Ricky Pearsall, just to have an overview conversation about these guys, because we can dive into them individually. I think Ricky gets comped with McConkey a lot, just because they're like slot receivers that win in that regard. And Roman Wilson's a little bit more of a vertical receiver. He's played a little bit more on the outside, although McConkey's played a good amount on the outside too. But I just feel as though Pearsall and McConkey are linked often. They're good football players, but Roman doesn't get that same kind of love, I feel, universally, the way that those smaller receivers do. So shouting him out here. So I got him at 9. I got Keon Coleman at 8. I got Lad McConkey at 7. And then we're stopping for the next 3. So
almost the same players.
Who do you want to just like share some thoughts on with Ricky Pearsall, Roman Wilson, Keon Coleman, Lad McConkey?
So I think we also have to talk about Keon, right?
Sure.
Because it's clear that both of us have not quit him. There was a time where I think he was thought as a top no-brainer top 5 receiver in this class, and we don't have him there anymore.
Right.
But we are both still holding on hope as like a top of second roundish.
He's one of the strangest players I've ever watched.
Same.
Just because on a play-by-play basis, feels like he's stiff, feels like he doesn't have nuance, feels like he's not going to ever become a separator, just doesn't do the little things well to separate. And I'll go, man, okay, I think you're maybe just a limited, explosive kind of straight line athlete. And that's just kind of like what you are. And you'll probably just be only a contested catch guy. And then I'll watch him get a screenplay and he'll turn into a backyard football player and he'll just make 4 guys miss. And I'm like, where is that when we're running the route? Take the foot. Dude, I don't care. Hold an imaginary ball high and tight when you're running your route and just like do those little things. Be more fluid. Be that athlete that we know you can be. This guy is such a good athlete, such a diverse athlete. He tried to play basketball at Michigan State for Tom Izzo.
He has a uniform.
He actually has a uniform, right? While also playing D1 football.
So do you take that into account, though, with his unrefined nature? Like, imagine being on Michigan State's basketball team and also trying to play wide receiver in college.
No, sure. And I guess I could see that a little bit. I would hope that since then, because it's been a while since he was trying to do both sports, that like he would have gotten better at some things. And look, there's no doubt about it that it worries me that I just don't know how much better of a route runner he's going to get, because he has the ability to. I've literally seen it. I just don't see it consistently from him. It's like the 40-yard dash time. What do you run? A 4.65?
Like a 4.63.
He ran
4.61. 4.61.
Which is what percentile of a wide receiver?
17th.
He runs a 4.61, Connor, and we go, yo, that's got to be like the worst time that Keon Coleman could possibly run. And then his pro day is like 2 weeks later, and he doesn't run. What?
That's just his time.
What? What?
At some point, that's just your time.
You're standing on a 17th percentile time when you are boasted as this incredibly athletic, linearly explosive type of a player. Then he does the gauntlet drill at the combine, and apparently he ran the fastest gauntlet drill of any of the wide receivers. And people are just going, play speed over straight line speed. He is so confusing. But even with that being the case, again, sort of like Xavier Legette, if what I am seeing in Keon Coleman is all I'm getting from him in the pros, that still plays. Like, that's still athletic enough to be a wide receiver 3, a red zone option, like something like that. You're hanging on to this guy. He's going to play on your roster. So he's frustrating. He's probably the most frustrating player in this class, because I think he should be better than he is. But you kind of got to take what he is at this point over the last 2 years in Michigan State and Florida State. And man, it's just tough. Just tough. Somebody who just does not separate well, does not have nuance in what he does, but he's a great after the catch kind of an athlete. They use him in punt return, for goodness sake, because of the type of fluid athlete that he is.
Yeah.
It's just mind boggling, man.
Tough one to quit for sure.
Yeah.
I think with, McConkey and Pearsall, they just separate. They have varied release packages. They're athletic. They are fast. They catch everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, at the end of the day, and they play inside and outside, and they do it well. At the end of the day, like, they are both going to get open. They are going to catch the football. They can stretch the field. They can play underneath. Are they going to catch the ball and run through 5 people like, AJ Brown? No.
Right.
The floor with those two is so absurd. It's just hard to not stack them appropriately with their skill sets.
I kind of think the same with Roman Wilson, man.
Yeah, he's like the same mold, just like a notch down.
I like him a lot. And I mean, he's faster than both of those guys. Like, he's got track speed. His mom ran track. He ran track in high school. I mean, like, he's just got that in his DNA. We have those stable and unstable metrics at PFF, and one of the stable metrics that we like to use is separation percentage. So separation percentage overall, and then versus single coverage. Roman Wilson, 95th percentile separation against just overall, and then single coverage, 93rd. Like, this dude is just clearly running away from people in how he runs his routes. A lot of it is vertical because he's got a 79th percentile average depth of target, but he's stronger at the catch point than his frame, I think, gives him credit for, because he's a little bit smaller. He's got a little bit shorter of arms. He will block his ass off for you very similarly to that of Ladd McConkey. So pound for pound, you're getting everything you want out of that dude. And then Pearsall as well. Yeah, just to touch on him, man. I think Pearsall is even more tempoed in the nuance of his routes and his breaks and his releases than the other two that I mentioned. I just think the other two are a little bit more athletic when it comes to getting down the field. That's why I had them both over Pearsall. But yeah, like you said,
good way to put it.
Big board rankings. I mean, they're all 3 of these dudes are players that you can rely upon. They're efficient, and they also have some explosive ability to them as well. Really good hands from all these guys. Pound for pound, really strong players. And just because they're a little bit smaller doesn't mean you have to limit them to the slot, right? I think that was a big boasting point of McConkey, but it's also the same thing with Roman Wilson and with Ricky Pearsall. So I see all of those guys as top 10 receivers in this class.
All right, the big drum roll.
We just doing 6 through 3, or are we doing?
We can.
You want to do 6 through 1?
We can do 6 through 3.
I mean, we know who the top 3. Just do 6 through 1. Let's just do 6 through 1.
All right, 6 for me is Jalen Polk.
Okay.
5 is Troy Franklin.
Okay.
4 is Brian Thomas Jr. 3 is Rome Odunze. 2 is Malik Neighbors. 1 is Marvin Harrison Jr.
Coward.
I mean,
I'm just kidding.
I have Jalen Polk in my top 6.
I'm kidding. No. I remember we got a couple of comments of people who were like, "Put Malik over Marvin."
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, but
yeah, you're at the wrong show, folks.
Can't do it. We're just, this is the truth telling show, and if you wanted us to lie, you got to go elsewhere. That's all I'm saying. So 6 for me, Troy Franklin. 5 for me, Brian Thomas Jr.
Wow, he really did it.
4 for me. I got to stick to who I am as a person, Connor.
That's fine. You have liked him forever.
I can't go away from
forever. You liked him before he ever wore a Texas uniform.
It's true. I am his top 5 wide receiver going into the season. I can't quit him. I've got to keep the flag. This is my boy, A.D. Mitchell, wide receiver 4 in this class. Rome Odunze is 3. Malik Neighbors is 2. Marvin Harrison Jr. is number 1. Can we talk? We got to talk about Paul. Or actually, I got to let you talk about Jalen Paul. I like him. I think he is a good wide receiver. But you got him at 6. I had him at 11. That might be the biggest discrepancy that we have. So I would love to hear you talk about Jalen Polk and how much you like him in this class.
So with Polk, clearly Gracie wants to talk about Polk as well. If you hear her just barking like hell.
Gracie's into it. She's just pumping Jalen Polk up right now.
She's like, this is my take. Don't steal my thunder. With Polk, I think number one, I think he's bigger than people realize. I mean, he's over 6'1". He's over 200 pounds. He's got big hands. He's got almost 10-inch hands. The concentration is out of this world. I mean, the tracking, the concentration, the adjustments. He can make catches while sliding.
Yeah.
I think that the 10-yard split, which was a 76th percentile metric, like that's why he gets open so much. He knows how to get off the line of scrimmage. He's explosive into his routes.
His feet are quick.
Really quick feet, really good route runner. And he will do the things that a lot of guys don't want to do. He has no fear of car crashes in the middle of the field. He'll work the middle of the field. He'll work through contact. Pound for pound, one of the strongest players in this wide receiver class. I've said this before. He reminds me of Chris Godwin. He reminds me so much of Chris Godwin. And I know that is borderline hyperbole praise, but I think that's the easiest way for me to explain to people, because you take it in stride, Trevor. You're like, you really like Polk. Like, tell me why. Sometimes people are like, why do you have Jalen Polk over this guy, this guy, this guy, this guy? The easiest way to relate it to people is I think this dude is a very Chris Godwin-esque player.
Yeah, and look, if you see any wide receiver like Chris Godwin, you can't help but have him in the top 10 of any wide receiver class. There's no question about it. I mean, just as somebody who has watched a lot of Chris Godwin football since he has been drafted into the NFL, again, the things that you talk about with Polk are attributes that have made Chris Godwin one of the most reliable wide receivers in the NFL.
Right.
Whether it was a Dirk Cutter offense, whether it was the Bruce Arians offense, whether it was what we've had this past year with, oh my gosh, who was the offensive coordinator who just took the head coaching job with?
Canales?
Yes, Dave Canales offense, like whatever it was. When they need a tough catch for a first down over the middle, you know what they're doing.
It's the guy.
They're running a dagger concept. Somebody's running a vert, and Chris Godwin's coming over the middle with the dig route. I mean, it's just that is what is happening, and they're going to be reliable. He's going to be able to sit in between the linebackers and the safeties. He's smart. He'll bounce off tackles. He'll block for you. He'll do everything. And so if you see any receiver that is like that, now I do see a lot of those characteristics with Jalen Polk. I don't think he's quite the athlete to be Chris Godwin, but heck, man, maybe I'm underselling it because, the contested catches, the acrobatic catches, the strength, just everything, man. A lot of that stuff is there for him, and you have it a little bit higher for him just in what you see for him overall, but we do see him pretty similarly. So the fact that if you're believing in that high end, I get it. I do get it.
All right, so talk me into Adonai Mitchell.
Okay,
Because you
so
have him over my love child and Brian Thomas Jr.
yeah, so here's the thing. I think I'll describe AD Mitchell while also describing Troy Franklin and Brian Thomas a little bit. Troy Franklin comes in at a much skinnier size, right? I mean, when you just watch the tape, you could tell, okay, this guy's going to be a lower weight percentile. He was 176, yeah, which was, I'm just looking at it right now, which was fifth percentile in the NFL. So you see on his tape that he is a smaller player, but he has such a playmaker's mentality. He's smooth. He's got a feel for where the open space is. When he gets the ball, he's not just trying to go down immediately. Like, he's trying to get those yards after catch. He's just such a smooth player. I don't think he's the most explosive vertically, despite having a lot of vertical production in Oregon's offense. It's not like I'm watching him, boom, get off the line of scrimmage, beat press, and just sprint up the field like Brian Thomas Jr. does. He's not that caliber of an athlete. He's more of a smooth vertical receiver and a playmaker than he is this super explosive one. Brian Thomas Jr. is, to me, less nuanced, less of a playmaker when it comes to those yards after catch, unless it's just a straight sprint to the end zone. But man, can this dude get off the line of scrimmage. His first step is unbelievable. He can get even and beyond defenders extremely easily, and that's why he's one of the best deep threat wide receivers in college football this past year, and I think it's going to translate to the NFL. I think AD Mitchell is a blend of both of those players. Like, I don't know if, like, pound for pound, I don't know if he's as explosive as Brian Thomas Jr. I'd probably still give the nod to Brian Thomas Jr. in that regard, but AD Mitchell, now, here's the thing. When he is on, okay, and I get it. That's a caveat that we have to get to in a second. When he is on, he's got some of the best plays of any wide receiver in this class. The way that he gets off the line of scrimmage, the nuance that he has in his routes, the wiggle that he has for his size, how he can get vertical, the contested catches. I mean, he gave Kool-Aid McKinstry fits when Texas played Alabama, and he was doing that at Georgia when he was healthy as well. He could be a great red zone threat. He's got a knack for the end zone. He showed the explosiveness at the combine to where he could be used basically everywhere. Now, look, the blocking is super inconsistent. I hate how inconsistent the blocking is, and that goes back to what I said, the prepositional phrase that I use. I think it's a prepositional phrase. When he is on, when AD Mitchell is sort of not going at 100%, it's extremely frustrating because he's easier to cover, he's easier to plan for, and a lot of times it shows up as blocking plays. If I can get this dude to even buy in for like 90%, like 85, 90% of the game, I am getting a wide receiver one caliber player. He is wide receiver one talent at an NFL level. But it's just going to be a matter of how much the dude wants it. And to me, talent-wise, he's wide receiver 4 in this class. But for him, it's all about how he is interviewing with teams, what he can convince them for. When they throw on his tape and they go, what is this? What is this play?
Right.
Show me this play. And then they will probably be able to go to another play in that same game and go, okay, what is this? And he's got an answer for that. Because the good parts, the highlight reel, is it's easy to buy into. If we can get the best of AD Mitchell more often, more than a third of the time, I'm in. It's going to be good enough to be wide receiver one level talent at the NFL level. So that's kind of how I see each of those guys. I like all three of these receivers, but to me, AD Mitchell at his best is a blend of what I like a lot from Brian Thomas Jr. and Troy Franklin, and it's in one receiver, and it's been extremely productive when he's been on.
Listen, I get it. And I know people get frustrated when we have guys ranked differently, but we often paint the picture the same way. But this is absolutely one of those where we see it the same way. You are just taking the gamble, and I have been way more reserved. I have him, as I said,
9.
I have him as my wide receiver 8. 8? 9. You had it right. 9. I can count. So that's really bad. Wide receiver 9. Still have him in my top 45, 40-ish. the summary I wrote up was Mitchell is one of the more high variance prospect in this talented wide receiver class. He has the length, speed, and explosiveness to be a dynamic number one target in any offense. His lack of consistent intensity and aggression on a snap-by-snap basis will always leave you wanting more. Mitchell's track record in the red zone and field stretching speed are well worth using a top 50 pick on, but a first-round investment comes with clear-cut risk.
Sure.
I think the last thing that drove me insane is something you touched on. I cannot fathom, like, he just let people go by him in the run game. I almost couldn't believe what I was watching.
Some reps are bad, man, and there's no excuse for it.
I don't know how you go back to the sideline and look at your running back and your linemen and your coaches, and they're like, yeah, like, we know you're going to get one in the red zone, so that's okay. Football is such a intense DNA sport. It's so hard to turn off for a second. Like, being around, you've covered an NFL team, Trevor. You know this more than anybody.
Mm-hmm.
It is intense, borderline terrifying being on the sideline of an NFL field. Mm-hmm. Like, that's the speed, the collisions, the contact. Like, it is a totally different beast than any other sport, any other professional athlete. If he brings that side of him to the NFL, it's just not going to work. Like, it's just, he might be, and he's a great red zone threat. His guy can catch 10 touchdowns in his sleep. It is unbelievable how dynamic he is in the red zone. He has all the talent in the world to be phenomenal in between the 20s. But like he also hits cruise control on routes.
He does.
Like, cruise control. Like, I don't think I'm the first or second read on this one. Like, I don't really got to sell it. And I'm like, really? Like, really? And there's times where he's thrown the ball on some of those routes. And you're like, well, I've seen you do it.
There are a couple of times when he's running like and it's kind of crazy because throttled down for him is still good enough to separate and like get a catch, but you can tell it's not as good as it could be for him, and they will still throw him the football. And I think I'm just a sucker for it because I go, you're getting targeted with less than your best.
I know.
And look, I'm with you, man. And normally I am on your side of the debate. Normally I am on the side of,
I'm glad you're not.
I can't deal with a player who's not going to give me 100% all the time. But if there's a position where you can get away with that, it's wide receiver.
If he goes to the Chiefs, I'll be visibly angry. Like, visibly angry. Solak said it,
baby.
Solak said it the best.
If he goes to the Chiefs, I won't even wait for the training camp clip. I'll take the victory lap and we can move on to the next draft cycle right then.
It will be infuriating because it's just like, yeah, he caught 10 touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes. He took 30% of the plays off, but it didn't matter at all.
Didn't matter. But
there he is streaking down the field, 60 yards, 10 yards ahead of the closest defender. Yeah, all right, and he does some little things really impressively. I mean, the lower body control, the toe taps, feet drag. Like, it's really pretty. It's really pretty. I'd have never been this frustrated with a player, I think, in this entire class like this.
There are that Houston game specifically where he puts a little double move on the corner into the red zone. And the corner's like on the other side of the Milky Way galaxy. He burns him so bad. And it's just like, dudes who are as big as he is shouldn't be that fluid. And it's so hard for me to quit a player who has that sort of natural talent and ability. Did you want to hit a little bit more on Brian Thomas Jr. and Troy Franklin before we just kind of talk about the big three?
Yeah, I'll drop my comp for Brian Thomas Jr. He reminded me of Christian Watson, like, for good and bad.
Okay.
Where you're like, oh, man, you're basically the best athlete in whatever room you walk into at all times. The length, the speed, the leaping, and you just need to play the position more. And that was Christian Watson coming out of FCS. There was times where you were like, man, he's that big in contested situations. He should be better. And then you see when he's healthy and on the field for Green Bay, like, the offense is just totally different with him. And I think with Brian Thomas Jr., he has that kind of athleticism, that kind of build. I have said this. I don't care that Brian Thomas Jr. will drop some layups and doesn't have a massive route tree. he's just so gifted vertically and in the red area that he's that kind of impact player. When you look at Troy Franklin, there is a lot more risk with this one. He's my 5th wide receiver, but I have a first round grade just on the first 4. Just Marv, Neighbors, Rome, and Thomas. The second round grades start with Franklin. Of course, the weight. I think he's a really good route runner, and because he's fast, he doesn't get credit for that with Franklin.
Ooh, Franklin?
Yeah. Like his first step off the line of scrimmage allows him to dictate the rep against coverage, trying to mirror him in ways that just not a lot of guys can get into the route that quick at that length. Like he's lengthy. He's not small. He's skinny.
Right.
He's got length. So he was someone it's weird with Franklin. 2023, he had drops that didn't exist in 2022, like layup drops, where I'm like, you didn't drop those in 2022. 2022 film was great. He had almost 1,000 yards. And this year he was more productive, but he had more drops. Tempo, can play fast in the short area. It's just, he's a guy that needs to get stronger. There's just no way around it. And the hands, he has smaller hands, and they were not consistent this year. And that was a red flag to me.
Does he have smaller hands?
Yeah, they're under 9 inches.
Oh.
Which is weird for a guy that tall.
Yeah, that is strange.
8 3/4, 9th percentile hands, but he's 6'2".
Interesting. Yeah. No, that might explain a little bit. Look, I like Franklin. I think he's a very natural athlete. Like I said, the thing that I like the most about him is we talk about him as a vertical threat receiver, but he wins more vertically just because he understands how to win at the position. Yeah, he's a good athlete. I wouldn't say that he's an elite athlete. He's not A.D. Mitchell. He's not Brian Thomas Jr. He's not Roman Wilson. He's not these other guys who can get vertical pretty easily, but he still gets very open and is able to be productive down the field because of how he wins off the line of scrimmage. I mean, he's winning with his footwork first. He's creating that separation. He's keeping that separation. He just is. He's somebody, the reason why I had him at 6. And I've made a case for him as wide receiver before. I think that he should definitely be in this conversation for guys that can be really productive at the NFL level here in this like tier 2 of wide receivers. But it's just kind of the lower weight profile gets me. And the fact that he's not just a super explosive athlete like the other 2 guys ahead of him happen to be. So that's kind of how I see Franklin.
Can we just give Troy Franklin some love for actually doing the 3 cone?
Yeah, because nobody else did, right?
I feel like nobody else did.
Yeah. And he's a taller receiver, and he had
6'9". That's good for that size.
Yeah, 63rd percentile. That is pretty good.
So the top fellas, the big dogs,
3?
the top 10 picks.
Yeah.
I mean,
and they are that. They're all 3 top 10 picks.
I still think there's a gap from Marvin Neighbors to Rome. And I love Rome.
I do too.
It's not weird to me because Rome, there's so much to love about Rome Odunze. He is brilliant. He is all world work ethic. He is phenomenal in congested situations. He is a master of his craft. I love the timing, the late hands. And I know he tested like a freak show, but when you watch Neighbors, it's like true, like rocket status. Like just, it's like, what is this dude is like literally a spaceship taking off.
He's got a jetpack, man. He's got a jetpack.
He's got a jetpack. And it's just something that you're born with, that Neighbors has.
There of these 3 guys, and when we've talked about this before on this podcast, all 3 of them have a case to be wide receiver 1 in most other draft classes. I
would agree. Last year, they literally get up out of bed like,
oh my God,
looking like shit, and they're the top wide receiver by like 15 spots.
Yeah, without question.
That's how good they are compared to typical years.
I think Rome's a future wide receiver 1 at the NFL level, and it's so weird that we have to talk about him in like a downplaying mood because he does everything so well. You know, he gets off the line of scrimmage great. Really, the only issue that I had with him going into the year was his contested catches, which are fickle anyways. Like it's a fickle stat anyways. But I just didn't think that he was reliably strong enough or competitive enough at the catch point from the 2022 tape. It wasn't the fact that he wasn't hauling them in. It's the style in which he wasn't hauling them in that I was kind of like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna note this. This year, much more aggressive, much more confident at the catch point with guys hanging all over him. And when you combine that with really nice agility and speed when it comes to his size, it's just hard to find an area of this guy's game that you don't like. The issue is, like you mentioned, he's going up against 2 guys who have elite traits to stand out. Malik Neighbors' movement skills are elite, even for the NFL level. And that's why I think you've got to give him the bump over Odunze, because as incredible as Odunze is and how well-rounded he is, Neighbors gets him on that elite movement skills, elite change of direction, elite acceleration. And then Marvin Harrison Jr. is just, he's already, he's just such a master of the craft, man. He's so much of what I said about Rome Odunze, the varied releases, the tempo in his routes, hitting blind spots, attacking different leverage, being great in contested catch situations, a red zone beast. There weren't a lot of yards after catch opportunities for him in 2022. They schemed those up for him this year, and guess what? He was incredible at those and very, very productive at those as well. So it's just, there's a total mastery of the position that we just do not see very often from one of those players. My comps for all three of these guys, and I can just read those off. These will be in the draft guide. For Marvin Harrison Jr., I have taller Devontae Adams as kind of my comp. For Malik Neighbors, I have shades of Antonio Brown.
Oh, that's fun.
Then for Rome Odunze, I have a supersized Chris Olave. Those are the three comps that I have for those. So
I went with Keenan Allen for Rome Odunze. I know that's been pretty popular.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I said this last summer, and I haven't moved off it. For Neighbors, DJ Moore. And then Marvin Harrison Jr., definitely a trickier one. Kind of reminds me on tape of AJ Green. It's
okay.
Like that same style that they have the build up vertical speed. They can go up with these long arms and kind of snag the ball. Defenders can kind of hang on them and it doesn't really bother them, while they're also just great route runners at the size, right? Like when the guy's that big, it's so hard to be a natural route runner.
Yes.
And AJ Green and Marvin Harrison, and Green was Green's going back a little bit. I wasn't ranking players like this when Green came out to the draft, but obviously remember him when he was on the Bengals. Just a very, very similar profile, in my opinion, to Marv, and very similar play style. And I think they will win the same way at the next level. And man, if AJ Green doesn't get hurt, he probably has 3 more big years left in the tank on him. He just had a career taken away too early.
Yeah, I mean, you look at his production before that injury.
Oh, it's nuts.
It's 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons to start his career. The only reason why he didn't have 6 and 7 is because he missed 6 games,
half a season, basically,
in 2016, and he still only missed it by 36 yards.
That's what's crazy with how good he was.
I mean, look, I could totally see that as well. I think the AJ Green comp definitely makes sense for Marvin Harrison Jr., especially for how talented both of those dudes are. All right, there we go. I mean, anything else to hit on with those plays? I feel like we talk about the top 3 so much when we do mock drafts that we didn't really need to dive too much into those top 3 guys.
We talk about these players all the time. I mean, I think today we dropped player comps. That was good to add on to it.
Oh, yeah. Let me see if I had any other player comps. Next week, by the way, folks, next week's the big player comp week for me. I'm like taking my time to throw all those into the draft guide for the final.
Nice.
For the final version of it. So I'll be able to sit down and do a lot of those. Oh, so for AD Mitchell, I had T. Higgins kind of as a placeholder. I'm not sure if I'll change that, but I had T. Higgins originally. Brian Thomas Jr., how about this one? Martavis Bryant is my comp for him.
Yeah. I mean, I see it.
Tall, vertical receivers.
Yep. Hang time is ridiculous.
So that was my comp for him. I'm trying to see if I like anybody else.
You know who's going to be the toughest player to come up with a comp for?
Who?
Corley.
So,
and I know everybody calls him Deebo Samuel.
No, so I mean, the placeholder that I had for him, again, like when I was a lot lower on him, and I would take this away. I think I'm gonna try to stew on this and find a better one. But like, I was worried that he was going to be more Laviska Shenault, right? And like Chenault's kind of this player who is a pseudo quarterback, running back, wide receiver coming out of Colorado, and his tape's fun as hell. I mean, he's great after the catch, great contact balance, great for missed tackles forced, but just can't find a home at the NFL level. just can't really find a way to get on the field and impact in a consistent way. And I worry about that with Corley. Everybody just goes to Debo, but here's the thing. If you got a unique style of a player and everybody just goes to one name because only one name has worked out that way, a lot more players haven't. So you got to be honest. Issue. You've got to be honest with the situation. I try to be that with Corley, but I do think the yards after catch is just it's too good to deny and keep him out of the top 15 of this draft. So yeah, he's going to be an interesting one. I'll obviously keep the pod noted. Maybe we could do it like I don't know how comfortable you would be with this, but like an episode, maybe like a shorter episode next week where we give our
like a favorite comps.
Yeah, like top 10.
Yeah, that's a good. Just write down your 10 favorite comps you came up with throughout the process and just go down the list.
I feel like maybe that's the Thursday episode that we could do.
I like that.
So
yeah, this is probably the end of our position previews. Well, rankings, not previews.
Might have one more.
Okay,
depends. Depends what we do for the Thursday episode. You guys can determine it, okay? Hit us up in the comments. Let us know. One, we want to know what you think of wide receivers, and obviously we know you guys got takes on wide receivers. So please give us your wide receiver rankings, whether it's 5 guys, whether it's 10, whether it's 20, whether it's 30, whether you're an absolute sicko and you've got like 50. We would love to see the list. We would love to start discussions in here about wide receivers. We know you guys got takes on the best way to do that. YouTube.com/NFL Stock Exchange. Give us your takes on our takes as well. And then tell us what you want to see for the last collab mock draft that we have coming next week. And then also the last Thursday episode. We'll be flexible. We'll listen to you guys. And if you guys, overwhelmingly have us like, hey, you got to get this person on the show, all that, we will try to make it happen. No guarantees, obviously, with schedules and everything. A lot of people who are doing content right now are super busy, but we will try to make it happen. So, Connor, anything else before we get out of here?
Our last collab mock draft, we should have 2 people on that know nothing about the NFL draft and have them open the simulator with us and they make picks.
Damn. That'd actually be pretty funny.
It would be really funny. Maybe not enough people would appreciate it this time as they are really, really starving for real draft content. We have done enough mock drafts, you and I, that we're looking to laugh.
Right.
I don't know if anyone else would agree. Maybe it's an idea for next fall.
Get like 2 people who cover the NBA full time.
Yeah. And it's like the Aeneas Smith at 32 thing. Like we're sitting there like, oh my God. He really did take Keaton Slovis at 20 to the Steelers. How the hell did this happen?
Off of name alone.
Then PFF just makes the graphic, but doesn't say latest mock draft from
NFL Stock Exchange. Yeah,
yep.
Thanks, Zach. Appreciate it. Thanks. Just absolutely cooked. All right, let us know. Let us know what you guys want to see for next week's content. The week after that, we're going to try to give you, everything that we possibly can. Yeah. Our final big board episodes. We will have a final mock draft episode for you. Depending on the timing of things, we might have another episode before the NFL draft, but we will also let you know next week exactly what we're doing for the draft, just to let you guys know. We aren't doing a live stream for NFL SE. We absolutely won't be doing that because I will be on the desk
jobs.
BFF show. Yeah. You will be covering things for NBC.
Yeah.
So we want to try to give you as much analysis as we possibly can. We'll get you with our final schedule next week. But for those of you who are like, oh, we'd love a live stream, we would too. But it's just, it can't happen. It's not going to happen. So want to let you guys know that off the top. But plenty of great content coming forward. Let us know what you want to see next week. I'm Trevor Sikkema. That is Connor Rogers. Thank you guys so much for watching and listening to the NFL Stock Exchange podcast. See you guys next week.